Greetings, mortals, peers, and queers, to the second take of this entire recording as we have struggled through technical difficulty after technical difficulty. I'm your host, Lady Avalon, and we are going to be doing a bit of a different show today. You know, typically I am known for uploading short videos on news and politics, but today is going to be an opportunity for me to talk in greater length and greater detail about some of the stuff that I care about. And to do so, I have a lovely guest who will be introducing themselves in just a moment. But before we do, I encourage you all to subscribe for more content like this as I experiment and figure out what I want to do with this channel. And join the Discord, where you will see me and many other creators cohabitating our audiences and intermingling, interacting. If you want to debate any of us, you can join us on the Discord. If you just want to interact and hang out in the community, you can also do that in the Discord linked below. And with that, I will turn it over to my guest to introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm known as Astr0Feminist on TikTok. A lot of my channel is dedicated to talking about the patriarchy and my transition from being on the right, which is something that I used to be for a large portion of my life, and kind of that leftward movement and the different things I'm seeing, and basically my journey in learning about leftist politics, ideologies, and beliefs, and all that kind of stuff. My pronouns are she, her, and yeah, I love to talk about the topics that we are facing today, the issues that we're facing today, and just have discussions and to basically learn as much as I can and from as many perspectives as I can. So that's about it.
All right. And to give a short introduction to me to anyone who might be joining us for just the first time, I am Lady Avalon. I'm the host of Serotonin Studios. I am a transgender, lesbian, socialist, polyamorous, disabled atheist. And I'm a ginger. I'm a generally wordy person, and I quite enjoy diving into these topics in great length. Speaking of topics that we will dive into at great length, is this Twitter thread that went viral a while ago, and that I've been wanting to talk about for some time, but the formats that I previously used didn't quite work for what I wanted to go in depth on. So, without further ado, I'm going to jump right into it. For people who say, "What rights don't trans people have?" or "You're overreacting," let's review where we are at right now. Number 1, total bans on trans athletes regardless of whether or not they have gone through male puberty. And trans military ban. It will be back. So your thoughts on this? You know, the ban on trans people in the military, which Biden repealed, but is likely to come back via the next Republican president. And total bans on trans athletes regardless of whether or not they've gone through male puberty.
Yeah, as someone, I served 8 years in the military myself, and I've seen firsthand people that have needed extensive medical care, they needed to be removed from certain commands for medical conditions, and I just think it's really silly that they can't offer that same treatment and willingness to treatment to trans people. I think it's really it sends a very clear and, dare I say, bigoted message to a lot of trans people, basically saying that they're not welcome in the military. And and a lot of my page is dedicated to talking about the barriers that women face, but I think that there's a lot more barriers that trans women face, specifically when it comes to things like this. Women aren't necessarily barred from entering the military, but the fact that trans people have to wonder, can I join? And if I'm currently serving, am I going to be kicked out? This is my career. This is my livelihood. And I think it's just sending a very clear and dangerous message about trans people and just very non-accepting of them.
Thank you for sharing your experience. To 3 and 4. Bans on transition-related care for trans youth in about 10 states, and while only allowing conversion therapy. And investigating supportive parents of trans youth, possibly charging them with crimes. So the example that comes to my mind is in Texas when they started investigating those parents for providing their child trans-related health care, and they're trying to charge that charge the parents with child abuse. I think that's awful. That's abhorrent. And it just, it goes to show that they are gunning for, they're gunning for healthcare because they don't actually care about lives. That trans-related healthcare is provably shown to reduce suicidality rates, and supportive parents are shown to greatly reduce suicidality rates in trans teens. And yet, the Republican Party keeps hammering on this point anyways, in some bastardized call to protect the children, even though they deliberately put children in harm's way by doing this, and they exasperate, I can't pronounce that word, the conditions that lead to negative health effects.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how they use that argument that the suicide rate among trans people, and my response to that is always, well, I mean, when you live in a world where your entire existence is demonized, that is going to have a strong effect on you. When every person around you doesn't accept you for who you are, you're gonna feel a lot of emotions from that. And as we said earlier, when you present them with those facts, they kind of respond with almost a sense of pride, like, well, it should be that way. Um, so by investigating this family, essentially, to what end? What is this accomplishing? Because I feel like the damage that would come from this, not only from this family, but from families in the entire state and essentially the entire nation, are seeing how this is handled. I think this is going to just completely override all of the progress that we have made as a nation towards achieving rights for trans people. As we mentioned earlier, obviously as well, I believe it's Florida that's trying to detransition all of the children in the state that are currently trying to trans to the proper gender that they identify with.
Oh, I know, that's awful. That's there.
that is going to cause, like, these children are on, like, I'm not familiar with, like, all the mechanics of how the medication works, but I know you can't just stop that, like, that's incredibly dangerous, and they know that some of these people will not survive, and I think that that's a driving force behind why they're doing this. They know
That's a sacrifice they're willing to make.
Or it's their end goal, or well, not end goal, but that's a means to an end, basically. So.
And for some of the audience who may be a little bit confused by what we mean when we talked earlier, this is the second time we were recording this conversation. We had 55 minutes of audio recorded until my computer messed up, glitched, and we lost all of it all at once. So we are doing a take two. Very fun. Bans on trans. Conservatives are actively calling for the lynching of doctors who treat trans youth. Florida appears to be preparing to revoke the licenses of doctors who provide affirming care to any trans person, including adults. Something I want to hit on here is the including adults part. They don't just, they're not just concerned with trans children. They're concerned with trans people as a whole. They want trans people as a whole gone. And they are against the freedom of an adult to choose to transition. They don't want you to have that freedom in your life. They want to take that choice from you. They want to make those decisions for you. They want to force you to, Willow, stop eating your bed. Sorry, dog.
I
Um,
was like, I've never heard of a conservative say that.
yeah. Sorry, she's ripping out all the stuffing.
He's stimulating.
um, where was I? They want to force you to conform to a certain ideal, um, and they will happily make you suffer in any number of ways to make that happen.
Um, Something I find interesting discussing these kind of topics with obviously transphobic um, conservatives is they always try to bring up the science, and the same science that recognizes the existence of gender nonconforming individuals and validates their existence. And um, it's like, what science are you referring to that tries to discredit their existence? And they always obviously struggle in coming up with anything. So I just always found that kind of funny how they want to say the word science as if that like validates anything they're saying without actually having to back that up. And I've just noticed that's a common theme among right-leaning individuals in general, not necessarily just conservatives.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The sort of anti-intellectualism, anti-science thread has been a growing tumor in the conservative movement. You know, it started with like anti-vax movements, and the flat earther movements, and then those kind of spawned the modern, like, well, modern anti-vax movement and the whole anti-intellectualist bent as a whole. And for those of you who are wondering, oh, what are the sciences of trans people? Here is a incomplete list of reputable scientific and social organizations which affirm the validity of trans people, and that transness is not a mental illness, and that trans people are deserving of respect and equal rights. This also serves as a list of institutions which recognize the difference between sex and gender, those being the American Psychological Association, the American Medical Association, the American Psychoanalytic Association, the Human Rights Campaign, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Dyslexia. Let's try this word again. The American College of Osteopathic Pediatricians, the United Nations, and the United Kingdom's National Health Service. That is not a complete list, but a quick short list of some of the reputable organizations who rep the validity of trans people and the separation between sex and gender. And then, of course, there is all kinds of studies that I've gone on about in previous videos on my channel. You can go ahead and check them out. Um, but yeah, that'll give you just like a general idea of where you can start.
Also important to mention that not all gender nonconforming individuals inherently have some kind of disorder. I see that you're streaming.
Yes, I thought I'd give you the visual as well. That way you can see what I'm highlighting and things like that.
Okay, yeah. The common reference to things like gender dysphoria, and that is referencing specifically the distress one experiences from their gender nonconformity, and that isn't necessarily inherently due to their gender nonconformity. It can be due to outside influences like the whether or not they're accepted by the people they're around. So I think it's really important to make that distinction. I think it's really important to recognize that it's no longer referred to as gender identity disorder. That's what I was trying to think of earlier, the actual term, and that is an outdated term that is no longer used. And I notice a lot of them still try to use that to try and maintain that stigma around gender nonconforming individuals being disordered, even though that has been addressed specifically by the DSM-5, and they have released statements making that distinction. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
Number.
I try to
Go
make
ahead.
that clear. Oh, sorry, I'm done.
Number 7 and number 8. Nearly every major speech by Donald J. Trump now includes attacks on trans people, and conservative messaging gurus have honed in on calling trans people a threat to women and children. This is the big thing that they're going on about, trans people are like, the myth of trans women sneaking into women's bathrooms and then like assaulting people. For conservatives,
Trigger
of
girl.
course, yeah, of course, forgetting that assault is already illegal. Um, they run in and they're like, oh, because the trans can use a different bathroom. And by the way, speaking as a trans person, we just want to go to the bathroom. That's all we want. You know, if you're that upset by it, take the man and the woman off the bathroom. Just say this one has stalls, this one has urinals. Simplify it. But no, we just want to use the bathroom that we identify with, go to the bathroom, and go about our day. But instead, a lot of conservatives, with their ramping up of the dangerous rhetoric, have made it dangerous for trans women to use the bathroom of their choice. For me personally, speaking to my own safety, even though I'm 6 feet tall and fairly strong, and most people won't give me much trouble if I ask them not to, um, I don't use the women's bathroom for my own safety. I just use the men's bathroom because I'm fairly masculine presenting most of the time. And I just want to avoid trouble. Um, uh,
I can't imagine like how like that must be very uncomfortable. I couldn't imagine that like being in your position, having to you know the men's bathroom does not seem like a fun place. I would not want to go there.
Not quite. But it's just something. It's a little like dehumanizing thing. You want to do something as simple and banal and everyday as using the restroom in public, and even then, a trans woman has to have her guard up. Has to be like, oh, got to start calculating. Is this a safe area for me to actually be myself, or do I have to, um, and actually, let me dig into this a little bit because trans women who pass a lot better than me, um, who look a lot more feminine, are still at risk in going to the women's bathroom because uh, even people as innocuous as masculine, like butch lesbian women, they get called out for being trans, and they are put in danger for going into the wrong bathroom. And
Absolutely.
the danger is still present when we go into the correct bathroom. Um, because if a feminine looking trans woman goes into the men's bathroom, statistics show that we are at a greater risk of assault in those spaces. Now, I haven't experienced that situation myself because um, I am fairly masculine presenting all around, so I sort of blend into the men's bathroom. But eventually, when I get the money together to buy the things to do the process of looking feminine, that'll change. And that'll be a thing I'll have to be aware of. Now, thankfully, I'm 6 feet tall and I'm very strong, and I've never lacked to have a divisive and confident voice. So I can usually just get my way out of situations without anyone giving me too much trouble. But I've also never been in that specific scenario where I've been asked to be confident in that kind of a scenario where I'm kind of vulnerable. Trying to be myself, but if I'm forced to go into the men's bathroom while, like, if I'm in full makeup and I'm looking feminine, I'm in like a dress or something like that, I'm vulnerable there. I'm vulnerable to assault. There's more likelihood that my life is at stake. I don't know how familiar you are with the concept of the gay trans panic defense, but in a bunch of states, it is perfectly legal for you to beat a trans or gay person to death and say, oh, well, they were just hitting on me. Therefore, they deserved me beating them to death and killing them. And gay and trans people face much higher rates of murder with that defense getting their murderers off scot free. And it's scary, you know? violence against trans women is on the rise, and it's frightening. Even in public, we are not safe. You know,
And
we
I find that interesting is that women don't have that kind of like, if women are being harassed by a man, they don't have the ability to just that protection to like beat that harasser to death. So I think that's kind of speaks to the existence of the patriarchy of how men are protected in a lot of ways to be violent towards women and trans people. And it's just, I think this whole conversation speaks to the existence of the patriarchy and the fact that trans individuals are not conforming to the expected role that uh, basically is a slap in the face to the systems that we live under, and they do not like that. The people that uphold those systems hate to see it, and they pretty much want to do anything to remove that. I don't want to say rebelliousness because you're just trying to exist, but move that threat to the existence of that system. So,
well said, well said. Trans people in social media are regularly shut down by calling them pedophiles and groomers. Massive online accounts like Libs of TikTok routinely employ stochastic violence to provide targeted information to its followers. So, Libs of TikTok is a Twitter account run by conservatives um, that will find some random, like, trans or gay or generally queer teacher. And, if they even, if the teacher's, God forbid, the teacher have dyed hair or something like that, um, Libs of TikTok will expose that to a hostile conservative audience and rile them up. You know, if the teacher's like, "Hey, I had a class today where um, uh, the kids asked if I was married, and I said yes, I have a very beautiful husband that I'm married to, um, and I'm gay." And they're like, "What does that mean?" And they're like, "Well, some people have two mommies, some people have two daddies, some people have a mommy and a daddy, and uh, that's what I have. I found a boy very nice, and we got married together. Decided to share our lives together. Something innocuous like that. And then Libs of TikTok will take that and be like, the gays are sexualizing the children. They're teaching them about gay sex in the classroom. Something absurd like that. Post it, get 100,000 views on Twitter, and then suddenly this small account from a teacher who's just like couple of followers just talking about their experiences being a teacher into the world, suddenly they are flooded with thousands upon thousands of very angry people who are calling the schools, trying to get them fired, and leaving hate comments and saying terrible things like, "Oh, you should be shot and killed. You should be hung." And I've read some
a
of these
lot of
comments.
people a lot of these people take it further, and they will actually, like, if they live close enough, they will like go and just be threatening and just be there. Like, frankly, I don't trust these people. I try to like keep my personal information because I don't trust these people, um, you know, to not come to my house. I feel like some of them would, and so I feel like that when they see these teachers doing this kind of thing, they show up at the schools, like when there's discussing things like being vaccinated or requiring children to be vaccinated, or even wearing masks in the classroom, stuff like implementing sex education,
Mm.
younger grades. They show up to protest these things, and I just think it's really funny how they accuse, teachers and all like these open-minded teachers that want to teach children about things like consent and no-no zones, essentially.
Hmm.
When you say sex ed to these people, they think, oh, you're going to teach them about P and V intercourse. and I think that speaks to the failure of the American education system, like specifically sex education
Mm-hmm.
in America, and how that's what they think it is. That's sex
Yeah,
education in its
because
entirety.
they almost fetishize, gay people, you know.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
weird.
we are their most popular porn search terms, so that's like their most interaction with, queer people and the LGBTQ community is, they fetishize us, and so whenever they see, a happy like gay couple, they're not thinking, oh, those two people are in love and they're just like hanging out on the sidewalk. No, they're thinking, oh, those two people do anal. That's what in their mind, and
It's called
they think, oh,
projection.
they're degenerate, they've given into lust and sinned, you know, and their
Yeah,
brains are just broken, and they're just that's all they're thinking about, and so they go into that thinking that, when a gay teacher says, hey, I'm gay, I have a husband, they're not thinking, oh, it's the same as a straight teacher saying, oh, I got a wife. No, they're thinking, that teacher is talking about gay sex with the children, they're talking about anal and taking it up the bum, you know they
because
they
that's all they think about
that's all they
when
think
they
about.
encounter gay people. So they don't think that these people are just regular ass people that live regular ass lives. And
And
it's an
God
interesting
forbid
concept.
that teacher is like, gender queer or anything like that, whether they be gender fluid or they be, trans
Or
or anything like that,
non-binary. Oh
or
Jesus.
non-binary. Yeah, then they think they're like mental, they're like, oh, being trans is a mental illness and you're spreading the mental illness to other children, even though that's not how the fuck mental illnesses work, and that's not how being genderqueer works at all.
And they'll never call out the Christian church for, the thousands of cases of pedophilia and child molestation. They'll
Oh
never call
yeah,
them
no,
out.
no.
Those teachers trying to teach their students about two mommies and two daddies, or consent, or where it's appropriate to be touched, those are the groomers.
Oh yeah, yeah, no.
Sure.
Those gay people just trying to live their lives and like, interact with the community and, be educators to young children. Those are evil groomers. And we need to get rid of every single one of them. Ignore everything the Catholic Church has ever done. Just
Separation of church and state.
we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
We
It's
don't talk
bullshit.
about pedos. No, no. We don't. Oh, I shouldn't sing on camera.
I like that. My son loves the movie.
All right.
Awesome.
Any materials discussing that discuss trans people are being treated as obscene and are being removed from libraries. Republicans are trying to force brick and mortar Barnes and Noble bookstores to remove trans-related material because of its obscenity, going so far, Florida, to defund an entire library, a public library, because it bravely refused to give in to the mob and did not throw out some of its queer textbooks. They
Leftists
defunded
are
an
the worst.
entire fucking library. Conform or we will destroy you in every way we can.
What number is that on the list of fascism? What number is that one?
Oh, let's go. It was disrespect for intellectuals in the arts, an open hostility to higher education. Professors and other academics are censored or even arrested. Free expression in the arts and writing is openly attacked. In Germany, 1937, there was a traveling exhibit of degenerate art intended to drum up public disdain for modern styles. Pieces were hung willy nilly in poorly lit rooms with mocking graffiti all over the walls.
Just
And then we can also go all the way up to control of the mass media. The media is directly or indirectly controlled by the government. Censorship is very common, with Nazi book burning right at the top. A lot of people don't know this, but some of the Nazis' first attacks were against queer people, were against trans people. The Institute for Sexology Research was some of the first books that they burned.
Yeah, and it showed that, and it was suggesting the validity of gender nonconformity in trans individuals, and
Mm-hmm.
it was
Because they saw trans people as degenerate. Um, honestly, if you've ever seen the TV show The Boys, they did a really good criticism of this entire thing, where they
the
had a.
superhero show.
That's the superhero show, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that.
They had one of the main bad guys called Stormfront, who is a literal, like, in the universe, a literal, like, Nazi who's just, like, immortal. Um, they had her say the line, they like my ideas, they like everything I talk about, they just don't like the word Nazi. Um, and that's, I think, a problem that's we're seeing rear its head is, first, they desensitize the word Nazi. They say, oh, you call everything a Nazi. Well, no, we call Nazi thing Nazis, and you just happen to have a lot of those all around you. Um, and the Republican Party is doing a lot of the things that 1930s Germany was doing as well. Picking out a minority to hate on them, specifically trans and queer people, demonizing them to the mass public, legislating them to be a separate legal separate distinction, and then instituting things like with the monkeypox. It's a good thing we have Biden in office, because if Trump was in office, it would be Reagan's genocide of queer people in the 80s all over again. You know,
AIDS epidemic, yeah.
AIDS epidemic. Reagan incited a genocide of queer people by deliberately stopping the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, from doing any investigations or even mentioning or talking about anything related to AIDS. And an entire generation of queer people died because of the not incompetence but the deliberate malice of the Reagan administration. And with the monkeypox coming up again, Marjorie Taylor Greene saying things like, we should mock it, we should laugh at it, and that it's basically a gay disease, even though it's not. You can catch monkeypox the same way you can catch the common cold. You can use the same towels, the same blankets, breathe the same air. If you're in close contact with someone, you can get it. But because most of the people who are affected right now are gay men, right now, they are calling it a gay disease, and they are trying to stigmatize it as a sexually transmitted disease. Marjorie Taylor Greene said it's basically an STD. It's not. However, because anyone can get it, children can get it. They're almost inevitable that children get it. They're little, filthy little monsters. They're inevitably going to get some sickness. And because the Republicans have been drumming up and hitting the war drums and baying for blood so much that gay people and trans people are pedophiles and groomers, and that they're trying to infect your children. The second a child gets infected with monkeypox, and they've been lying, that monkeypox is a gay disease, what's going to happen to the nearest gay teacher? What's going to happen to the nearest gay person in the neighborhood? There's going to be lynchings. They're going to get lynched. They're going to die.
And I
Because...
think that's ironic. Um, you know, 10 kids can get shot in a school, and their first reaction is, don't take my guns. But one child gets sick from monkeypox, and they are going after who they think, obviously wrongly, but
Mhm.
they are going to crack down on that kid's affliction. But
Absolutely.
not the dozens of kids that have been shot in schools. Don't take my guns. So
Yeah.
it's a catalyst they need to just continue to fuel the flames and fuel the animosity towards towards the LGBTQ community.
Mhm.
As if it needs any more stoking, but
Yeah.
so
Major news outlets in the U.S. are either completely in the tank for people who think that society would be better off without trans people, like Fox News, or willing to credulously platform them, like the New York Times and the Atlantic, if they frame it as just asking questions. The UK media is unrelentingly hostile to trans people, and the public is turning against them as a result. In some ways, it is worse than Nazi in Germany in the 1930s, because all of them are doing it voluntarily. At least some German writers had a gun to their head. And yeah, kind of tying into what we just talked about, they're doing this all voluntarily, and they want queer people to die. They've made that abundantly clear many times. They want to exterminate us all, and maybe right now they're not saying that they want us all in. Actually no, didn't it just break the other day where a governor was saying that uh queer people should be put in camps for their own protection? They want to put us in separate camps away from people, quote, for our own protection. Like,
I mean, they've said absolutely heinous things about trans people, women, people of color. You know that I've heard some pretty wild things
yeah.
said.
And
about lining up.
Something I want to emphasize for the audience is one of the things that they're going to try and do is they're not just going to say, we're going to kill trans people because we're evil, mustache twirling villains. They are going to find a way to demonize and turn trans people into monsters, so that when they do kill trans people, or when they incite stochastic terror against trans people,
Crazy.
Your first thought will not be, oh my God, what a tragedy, this minority got hurt. You're going to think, oh, well, they probably deserved it. That is what the Republicans, that is what the conservatives, that is what the neo-Nazis are actively trying to do. That's why, the monkeypox thing and calling us all pedophiles and groomers. They are trying to justify any violent acts against us. That is what they're trying to do. And the Nazis did the same thing. The Nazis called trans and queer people pedophiles and groomers. They wrote the book, and the Republicans are playing it once again.
Yep, that's exactly how they justify any of their behavior, any of their bigotry, is that it is justified in some weird, diluted way against any marginalized group. That's discrimination against people of color, the infamous 13% of the population. They act like all of this discrimination is justified, and they refuse to look 2 inches past this thinly veiled racism or transphobia or homophobia into why that is. And that's yet another reason that I started noticing one of a key point in my shift from the right to the left was like I would begin to argue with people that I would normally agree with, and I would say, hey, this is inaccurate. Like, I understand what you're trying to say, but this is wrong, and this is why, like, this is what's actually true. Like, if we want to defend our side, we have to be accurate about it, and that's if we win. And I started to realize, like, there is no winning on the right. There is no way to win that argument, because you have to ignore a lot of nuance and a lot of empirical evidence of things that are happening, and that's what's happening. And then I made the realization that, oh, these people are fucking wrong. So that was just kind of a little backstory into like something that I've noticed, and it ties into every one of their stances against trans people, against anybody in the LGBTQ, women, people of color. It's the same across the board. And once I realized that, I was like,
yeah.
I'm not in the place.
And to hit on the point of like empirical, reasoning, because we've talked before about the seemingly hilarious incompetence of like the Trump administration and all of its failings, and Trump himself being like a short-sighted, dim-witted, narcissistic man baby. who's flagrantly incompetent all the time. Um, and I want to point out to the audience that is a regular thing in fascism and authoritarian governments all around the world throughout history, is their incompetence. You know, uh, the Nazis, Nazi Germany, had a nuclear weapons program. However, they wanted to do it without using any of the physics developed by Albert Einstein, because they dismissed the general relativity theory and special theory of relativity as Jewish science. They are screamingly incompetent. They are idiots. Their ideology makes them stupider. That doesn't make them any less dangerous. That didn't make the Nazis any less dangerous. But they are incompetent, which is honestly, a competent fascist is a scary fascist. If Trump runs in 2024, he would be less dangerous or less scary to me than if Ron DeSantis runs in 2024. Because Ron DeSantis, for all of my many political disagreements with him, he's smart. He's very smart. Trump, not very much. Trump is a dim-witted moron who will grab at power, fail, fall ass backwards in front of the world, shit himself, and then blame the Democrats for shitting himself. Ron DeSantis, he's smart enough to grab the reins of power and know how to silence dissent. He's smart enough to know the game he's playing and to play it well. He would not be held back by the same level of incompetence that Trump and the Trump administration is.
I think it's important for people to realize that, fascism isn't kind of like, registering to vote. Like, are you a fascist? Yes or no? Like, it's going to be presented in ways that can fool the average person. Um, and that's why I think we see so much of it today is like, it isn't like, oh yeah, I'm choosing to be fascist. It's these things that convincing people to believe a certain thing, and that in itself becomes fascism. Like, in accumulation, that's why there's that 14-point list, is that one of those things, like, I mean, obviously to us, like, we can kind of recognize that sort of thing, um, but it may not be as easily identifiable to somebody that isn't as immersed in this sort of conversation. Um, so it's a pipeline, and that's what a lot of people are talking about when the alt-right pipeline, how easy it is. It isn't like, oh, I'm gonna,
Mm-hmm.
it's like not like a little tunnel with a little sign saying enter here for the alt-right pipeline. Like, it's things that were presented to online. I don't know if you sent me the video, if it came up on my For You page or no, it came up on my For You page, that a guy had shared a video. Basically, he recorded himself going down the alt-right pipelines. Obviously, he wasn't like right-leaning, but he was showing how easy it is and how it starts with like just very bigoted, putting very bigoted people on your For You page.
Mm-hmm.
Just, and this is just specifically TikTok. It starts with things like the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, kind of like the low-level stuff, and then it takes you into like blatant homophobia, misogyny,
Mm-hmm.
transphobia, and it just it's an algorithm, and it's a system that puts certain people, and the more you interact with it, the more it's going to push you down that pipeline. So this whole idea of fascism, it isn't something that's like is happening to you. You have to try your hardest to look at it objectively, and everybody has their biases, so complete objectivity is obviously impossible. But actually, to try and look at it from a disconnected stance and really like compare what it is that you're looking at and analyze these positions. And I think that's something really important for us to do. I noticed that that's what I had to do to help kind of deconstruct these toxic ideologies that I had for myself. So,
Yeah, no, that's very well said. Fascism is Some people, if you meet them online, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm a fascist. That's my political position," and they're terrible, but they're the minority. Most of the
Yeah,
time,
I
it's
mean,
just sneaking in fascist ideas into everyday rhetoric. Like a lot of people don't directly associate a disrespect for intellectuals and the arts. You know, building up that open hostility to higher education. People who they're like, oh, our colleges are. Jordan Peterson actually hit on this a lot. The
oh yeah,
cultural Marxists or stuff like that. How they say that professors and academics are infecting our children of America, and that you shouldn't go to college, and things like that. You shouldn't
leftist
pursue
echo chambers.
yeah, leftist echo chambers and things like that. They they build up in the public these disdain for these various things. Or labor power is suppressed. Corporate power is protected. A lot of people don't realize that these are pillars of fascism. Um, a big one that's we're seeing recently is religion and the government are intertwined. The governments use the most common religion in the nation as a tool to manipulate the public's opinion. Religious messages and terminology are common from government leaders. We have Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that openly and proudly that she is a Christian nationalist. You know they are building the steps to fascism. You know, and the erosion of church and state. The seizing of executive power. You know, these are real problems that are plaguing our nation, and they're only getting worse. You know, and if we are to beat them, we got to beat them all hard, root and stem, all the way down. You know, you know
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you if there's a Nazi sitting at a table with 10 people, and um, the 10 people don't immediately kick the Nazi off the table, there are 11 Nazis at that table,
11. Yeah,
and you have to get rid of all 11 of them. Otherwise, the problem's only going to reassert itself.
if you're complacent, you're complicit.
Yes, that's a really good way to put it. Thank you.
Um, but yeah, we're definitely seeing that in like just yet another example is like how often religion is used in pro-life arguments. An unnecessary amount. It's it's incredibly prevalent, and you can't deny um, that religion played a role in overturning Roe v. Wade. I
Mm-hmm.
wholeheartedly believe.
Oh no, it came out after the fall of Roe v. Wade that some of the like there's a political action org that prays with some of the Supreme Justices, and that was like a really big thing that's still there. Yeah, one of the ladies admitted like, "Oh, this is off the record," as she was being recorded. But yeah, we pray with them. We go in there and we say a prayer with them, and they're like a political action org. It was insane. It's just like, wow, you're not even trying to hide how corrupt you are. You're just saying it with your chest.
They're very emboldened. They
Yeah,
feel very emboldened, like for everything on not even just
Trump
following
was
Roe
the
v. Wade. They're getting
culmination, and they've grown even more bold since him.
yeah, um,
Um,
like that the thing in Idaho where those guys had loaded up in that U-Haul, like that's still like
oh yeah, I heard
sensitive.
about that.
That was scary, and I wasn't even there, and
Like 20
that
guys in a U-Haul headed towards the Pride Parade because it was supposed to be the biggest in the area. They were coming from out of state. A bunch of dudes with ARs and guns just in the back of a U-Haul. And thankfully, the police stopped them and arrested all. What was it, like
it was
31
a
of them?
lot.
Yeah, it was a
Yes,
lot of them.
like some 20 or 30, and thank God for their stupidity. But like, how bold do you have to be to do that? Like a pride parade, and that's the thing. Like it's a pride parade. Like that is no threat to you. That was no threat to them at all. They just hate their existence, and
If you ask them, they'd say it's a threat to Western civilization. A
Threat to their white supremacy and patriarchy. Yeah, for sure.
16 and 17. A district in the Sixth Circuit ruled a week ago that protections provided by EEOC v. Harris do not extend to bathrooms and schools. So, trans people can be discriminated against in federal court, in bathrooms and schools. And there is a coordinated and ongoing effort to make schools so hostile for trans youth that obtaining an education is near impossible. We're seeing a lot of that everywhere.
So school wasn't already hard enough for, LGBTQ children, as if it's not, as if they aren't like bullied enough.
It's a very safe. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just can't get over the fact that like they do nothing to you. Like they're not asking.
Yeah, we just exist.
Right. Yeah, just hey, can we exist? Like, no. And I can't get over it. Like, I just can't. I don't understand.
It's a very safe bet that if Donald J. Trump, the GOP, succeeds in their plans to reenact Schedule F federal employment, policy is going to become extremely hostile to trans people. No more passports, no more gender marker changes anywhere in the federal system. Speaking of Schedule F, you can bet your ass that every transgender federal employee who falls under this classification and thus becoming an at-will employee is getting fired post-haste. A purge of trans people from federal service is coming. And yeah, I can't help but agree with that.
One of their favorite, on the right, their favorite arguments is like, well, that's illegal. It's against the law. Like, you see how quickly these protections change. Like, you see that Supreme Court precedents can be overturned within the course of a day. Like, and then when it happens, they're just like, well, sucks to suck.
Yeah, because, they don't actually hold, like, it as a principled position. They don't care about the law. They're just,
They care when it's convenient for them. Like, oh, well, it's
Yeah.
against the law to do that. So that's not happening. But then when it gets overturned, they're like, well.
And if you had asked them, hey, in a year or two's time, if Texas passed a law saying that your average citizen could sue people for getting an abortion and sue the cab driver for driving someone to get an abortion, they'd be like, oh, no, that's absurd. You're making that up. And then it happened. And then
they're like, well, you're trying to murder your baby. They're an accomplice to murder. Like, murder is like their favorite word right now.
Did you see the I forget, was it Texas or something like that? Where they said, oh yeah, no, we're going to make it legal for you to defend the life of the unborn baby by killing the mother.
Yes, I did see that, and it's like that is just an excuse to kill people who have the capability of getting pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. That's all it is. Ugh. Like, cut the protecting life bullshit. Cut it.
Mm-hmm.
Cut it out. Like,
it was never about life for them. It's about control. It's about punishing people who can give birth for having sex. That's what the whole abortion thing is about.
They want this weird control over women's sex lives, and like in the video that I stated, I think that they just hate the idea that women have this free access, this availability to having sex, that they want to punish women for that because they don't. And the video I made was on why men, or people shame women for liking sex and engaging in it a lot. And I think this ties into the abortion argument, is that they just want to punish those women. There was a tangent, I don't know, I'll come back on.
It's all right.
Good one too. Fuck, slippery little devil's thoughts are.
When Oberfell falls, it's going to be impossible for most trans people to prove that their marriage is valid. The same thing with their gender markers. Texas is going to try mightily to not honor California birth certificates or driver's license. Getting a valid government ID is hard for trans people already. We're already seeing bills trying to make it impossible again, like in Idaho and Texas.
I'm ashamed as a former Idaho.
Yeah. It's kind of gone down the shitter as of late. And hey, look at that. We're at the 55-minute mark, right where we crashed last time.
Yeah.
I do
I'm
thank
trying
you
to
for
hit all
coming
the
on.
same points.
I know. We're hitting all the same point. We've been doing pretty good. I'm happy with the conversation as it's been flowing. And we are getting close to the end here.
But
So,
I don't know if you've noticed, but
mhm,
you know, I was on right TikTok. I was on right-leaning TikTok for a really long time,
mhm.
and there are a lot of like gay, lesbian, right-leaning TikTokers, and I don't understand like how. I mean, I'm glad they feel safe, I guess, but I don't understand how they do. Like, they only accept the right, pretty much white cishet men only accept anybody that isn't a white cishet men if they reflect their
Oh my
views,
goodness.
so that they can tokenize them. So, like, if for women that are on the right, well, these women don't believe the patriarchy exists, so I guess it doesn't exist. Or, you know,
Or this black
uh,
person doesn't believe that racism exists. You know, they
oh,
roll those motherfuckers out every single time. You know, that's basically Candace Owens' whole grift.
yeah,
You
oh
know,
my,
or if you've ever seen, have you ever seen Blair White? She is the conservative trans. Um, and what's really telling is if you've ever seen like interviews with her with other conservatives, they will tear into her viciously, right to her face, and she'll just take it. She'll just accept it. She's like, oh yeah, they call her like mentally ill degenerate. Insult her right to her, and she'll just take it, and she'll just hawk their positions to everyone else because they want to consider themselves one of the good ones. You know.
but I bet they use the fuck out of her when the arguments come up, like, oh, she's trans and she's on our side, you know, and it
Mm-hmm.
makes me sad because I feel like that's like the danger zone for, you know, she's internalizing all of this hate that she's getting, but for this acceptance, and it makes me wonder because for a long time, well, not a long time, but like good amount of time when I was in that point where I was like really questioning what I was believing. I would still consider myself being on the right, but I was really questioning what I was believing. I was like, I had this feeling like I couldn't like change my stance. Like I had this feeling that I was like stuck in this ways because I'd already like, you know, I posted online, and anything you post online is online forever. And who
Mm-hmm.
knows, maybe someone had screen recorded my videos that are on there. I don't think I posted, well, maybe it was really ignorant, but you know, I worry about these people. Like, do they feel trapped in this? Like, do they feel trapped on the right? Because I know I did. So it makes me concerned. Like, do they feel like they have a way out of this? Um, when they see these
You,
things that are being said, especially towards them.
you know, one of the finest, the goodest examples, the finest examples of this actually happening in reverse is Hunter Avallone. I don't know how much you knew of him on the online space, but he was a big, like, I think he had like over 1 million subscribers. He was a big conservative channel. Um, but starting around 2018 to 2019, he started to move more leftward. Um, and now he's a full on. He's not like a full leftist, but he's like liberal. He's a progressive liberal. Um, and it's been really heartening to see like his unyielding integrity as he confronts all of his like his past content, his past behavior. He debunked his own videos on trans people, and then he went through the expensive process of deleting or unlisting all of the old videos that he was making money off of, and he unlisted them all. No more money. And now he's a sort of left leaning content creator, And he makes his sum that way. But it was incredibly brave of him to be like, yeah, my opinions have changed with new information and new arguments and new facts, and I'll alter my positions. And the shit that he got from the right for that, how dare you? You've betrayed us, all of that, and the fair amount of shit that he's gotten from the left of people saying we don't believe you, once a Nazi, always a Nazi, we won't take you in. And I'm happy to see that some elements of the left, elements I like to consider myself part of, the pragmatic leftists who are like, yes, good, a conservative publicly changed their positions and moved over to our side. So when they say stuff we disagree with, we'll disagree with them. We'll push back. But we want people to change. We want people to move over to our side. And so if there is any conservative content creators out there who want to come on the show, want to debate me, I'll debate you. I'll have a conversation with you. And if it happens, if the turn of events happens so that your content starts to change and you start to be more left-leaning, I'll support you in that. I'll be like, hell yeah. You want to be more left-leaning? You want a more left-leaning audience? Come onto my show. We'll talk about your old stuff. We'll talk about how your opinions have changed. And you can try and move your audience to the left and build a new left-leaning audience. I am all about the process of self-improvement and rehabilitation.
I think the most important aspect of it is, you know, finally questioning yourself. No longer questioning other people and their beliefs, but actually hold your own microscope. You know, when you're ready to go ahead and make that change. Because there was a while where I guess I was a closeted leftist.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wanted to openly and publicly share these things, but that fear of not reprimand, but just that fear of criticism from people that I once agreed with and once
Mm-hmm.
I really valued their opinion, like I started valuing their opinions less. And then now people that I had argued bitterly with, like, and in my head I decided like these people are stupid, they are so wrong. Like now I'm like, well, damn, they were actually right. And there's some shame there. There's some shame and there's embarrassment. Like I was, but it's important to let yourself feel that and let yourself like assess that and break it down and then become a better person from that, basically. um like I was really worried that like me moving towards the left, like the left wouldn't accept me as if they're a hive mind. It's not. There's so many, and it's just an ideology. So I think another most really important aspect of it is owning up to your past. I will never lie about the fact that I was on the right, the things that I believed. I believed some ignorant shit. And I'm totally open to talk about it with anybody, and address it. And I've even accepted the fact that there's going to be people that may not ever forgive me for that. I'm okay with that. I respect their feelings towards that. And if you want to believe that ignorance will never actually leave somebody, or someone can't just not be ignorant anymore, um, I respect that. I'm not gonna try. If you want to have a conversation with me, I'm more than open, well, or more than willing to do that. But just being open and honest with yourself. And once I started doing that, I felt a lot, a lot better.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree with that. The only part I would disagree with is that I am much more quick to reprimand the elements of the left who say, "Oh, people can't be reformed," because I think that runs opposite to a lot of the core leftist beliefs. We want people to come over to our side. This is not just a friend group. This is a political ideology. It's a political machine. You know, get your boots
Yeah.
on the ground, get people to move to our side, because if you don't, trans people will die. It's one of the issues I take real issue with the like burning your bust, don't vote crowd or vote third party crowd, because if you are not pragmatic about your politics, you're gonna lose. And I don't like Biden. Fuck Biden. But he's better than Trump. He causes the deaths of less trans people than Trump. He tries to overthrow democracy less than Trump. I don't like Biden, but he's a continuation of a functioning democracy, or as functioning as we got right now. Trump is the opposite of that. Trump will burn down our democratic institutions. Trump will actively make the lives of queer and trans and LGBT and people of color and native people's lives so much worse. And I feel it a position of incredible privilege for someone to go, oh no, I'm not gonna vote, or I'm gonna vote third party. It does, because it doesn't really affect you then, does it? You're getting off easy. You have the luxury to be cynical about politics.
Or to be apathetic.
To be apathetic too, But to the people who it really affects, people like me, people like my friends, it really pisses me off when leftists, not only not get involved, but actively push against anyone getting involved, push against reforming previously conservative people. It's, we're not going to get anywhere if we cloister ourselves in a group of close lefty friends. That might feel nice and it might be good for your mental health, and I encourage you to do that for your mental health. But if you have the strength, if you have the ability to step outside those small groups and try and make a change in the world, try and pull people to our side, you gotta do that. All right? We are on the precipice of a civil war in the United States. They are laying the foundations for fascism. So either you get with it and try and stop that and keep a functioning democracy as long as possible, or I consider you part of the enemy. Now, with one hand, I must hold back the tide of fascism, and with the other, I will grab you by your hair and drag you over the finish line. I will see us all in a safer world. And I don't have to be your friend to do that. I don't need to be your personal friend to make sure that your rights are still intact, that our democracy is still intact. I don't care if some elements of the left hate me or vehemently disagree with me as I kick their ass out of their doors and be like, go canvass, go vote, go get in your communities. And they may bitch and they may moan and they may cancel me on Twitter for that, but I'm always gonna hit with an iron rod. Hey, this is gonna affect people's lives. If you want to bitch about it on Twitter, I suggest you get involved in your communities and start doing something. That's a little bit more passionate than I've been in the past two sessions, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, and something I've noticed about the left is they're a lot more critical of their own ideologies, and I think that's why it's called the side of progress. And given my experience and my journey, I'm not gonna be one of those people that's like, you're a lost cause if you're on the right. I'm gonna recognize and talk to you about your beliefs, but if you're actually absolutely willing to change and question, not even necessarily willing to change, if you're just willing to objectively look at your beliefs and maybe say, well, maybe I was wrong, I will always hold my hand back for someone like that. And I will welcome them and tell them that it's okay, and I'm not gonna shame you for oh, you're going back on your word. I'll never say that. And if you genuinely want to change, if you're, just being an ignorant person, I will be an ignorant person right back to you.
Yeah. And I know we're getting pretty late, so we're gonna wrap it up here real quick, because this is we're on hour 2 of doing this, and
Oh
it's
my
pretty late at
goodness.
night for you. So I'm going to finish reading this. Conservatives are now openly talking about the quote transgender question, end quote, and transgender epidemic, implying that trans people may need to be wiped out for the good of society. Shire says this more directly. This is pre-genocide language. Anyone who has a sense of what happened in the run-up to World War II should understand the deep sense of "oh fuck" that I feel every day. The parallels are too damned clear. Banning athletes, forced out of schools, doctors who treat the community are forced out, banned from public spaces and public accommodations, purges from the military, purges from federal service, a universal and unrelenting media ecosystem hostile to the targeted minority, the minority being framed as a threat to women and children. The minority in question is framed as both disgusting, pathetic, and weak, yet strong enough to destroy the nation and Western civilization. Bans on IDs that don't single out the minority for discrimination, bans on positive material related to the minority, and talk of the minority's position in society as a question or a problem that must be solved, or worse, talking of them as a lethal and contagious disease spreading throughout the body politic that must be cut out like a tumor. Yes, this would be less concerning in a democracy where people were promoting these things are despised political minority, like I don't know that one. But it's not. This is the position of the party that is likely to take permanent control of the government in 2024. People are saying they wouldn't go that far. The people saying they wouldn't go that far are the same ones who assured us that the GOP wasn't so crazy as to overturn Roe and leave out exemptions for rape and incest, and yet they did. They're the same ones who assured us that the establishment Republicans could contain Trump, and yet they couldn't. Both Arnett and Arrondo warned that the capacity for genocide is a part of every culture, i.e., the banality of evil. They were mocked at the time, because the thinking was that only a small group of dedicated Nazis was responsible. Most modern scholars have come around. The GOP and Tory are being whipped into a hateful frenzy. Unrelenting negative media is making the rest of the public apathetic to the fate of trans people. Should democracy fall, the GOP's base are going to get to decide how to answer the transgender question. You know, the same base that tried to lynch Mike Pence and has decided dying of an ectopic pregnancy is okay because everyone gets to heaven that way, who are ready to lynch doctors who provide care to trans youth, the ones calling us pedophiles and groomers, the ones who think Western civilization cannot survive if trans people do. So, just what do you think are the odds that they'll decide trans people deserve to live when they have the power to decide? Yeah, that's the calculus. I could not have put it any better myself. I recommend this thread to everyone, from Brian Tannehill. I will link it in the description of this video. We are an hour and 13 minutes into this. I thank my guest for coming on. Thank you, Astro. Appreciate you, and your insights were wonderful, and you are a very good conversationalist. To sort of wrap up my closing thoughts, we are in a very dangerous time, and we are at the precipice of far more dangerous times. And this is when, not just queer communities, but allies as well, need to stand together in solidarity and work together to root out this evil. Not just I won't be satisfied if Trump goes to jail. That'll be good, but he was supported by an entire political party, and that party has been moving further and further right. I won't be satisfied if just Trump goes to jail. We need to clean house with all of them. They are a danger to us, to minorities, to everyone. They will make the world worse, and we need to stand together as a mighty whole to oppose them, to push them out, to beat them. And I'll turn it over to my guest for any of their final thoughts, and then they can shout themselves out one last time, and then we'll close out for the night.
I just think now is the time when everybody really needs to stop and, as objectively as possible, look at what you believe and why it is that you believe what you believe, and truly ask yourselves, like, are you defending your ideology because you feel it's right, or because you have been conditioned to by your surroundings and the people you spend your time around and the media you consume? I just think it's really important now more than ever. Like Lady Avalon had said, we're at the precipice. It's time. It's time to really think about where we want to go forward as people, and where we want to make that progress. So that's pretty much it. Again, I am Astr0Feminist. Check me out on TikTok and let me know if you want to have a discussion or a debate. I love to talk to people, especially those that disagree with me.
I thank you all for listening to tonight's broadcast. It's getting quite late, so we'll close out the night. Subscribe for more videos. I hope to make this a regular thing on Mondays, but life is busy. I'll be going to college soon, so I will try and stay as consistent as I can with the content, but obviously we all have our priorities to tend to. Join the Discord if you want to join our communities. We have several other creators all in the same Discord, all interacting with each other, all collaborating. And you can interact with any of them. You can debate. I am the resident debate lord on the server, as well as the server owner and admin. So come along and join us. I have a Patreon also linked below. If you like this kind of content, you'd like to see me do it more, and you'd like to see me do this more than the job I currently have. Job, college, and this. Because I'd like to make this my part-time job or full-time job. But to do that, I can only do that with your support. And with that, this has been Late Night Serotonin. I'm Lady Avalon, and I'm signing out.